Right, we're good to start. As Parama mentioned, my name is Darshik Patel. I'm a senior lecturer of economics at the University of Kentucky. And this is my first, you're fine. This is actually my first ever international conference or seminar presentation. So I'm really excited to be here, especially being in London. I've connected with Parama quite a bit on online, and this is great to see her in person and also a lot of friendly faces. But also I get to visit Arsenal play Leicester on Sunday for the first time ever because I've grown up to be an Arsenal fan since I was 7 years old and never got to see them play. So if there are any Arsenal fans on the chat, send me as many chances as possible, as Parama's kids are going to do that as well. So I'm really excited to share one of our passions with Abdul Al-Barani. He's at Northern Kentucky University. He also went to grad school with me at the University of Kentucky. Our passion in econ games. I want to tell you the story about how this came about and how it can be relevant in various ways of bringing into your classes or into your curriculum as well. All right, so to get us started, I wanted to connect this to the idea of authentic assessment. When you think of the term authentic assessment, take some time, write on the chat and see what comes to your mind. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear authentic assessment? And you could have multiple responses. Okay, we hear real world skills. Something which tests real world skills. Combinations of skills within the same questions. Assessments, definitely assessments that matter to students. Okay, so something that truly assesses abilities. All great responses. All right, so these are really great responses. I'll keep an eye on chat if any more come up. But my goal is to relate this econ games to the idea of authentic assessment. In other words, it's going to be a little bit informal rather than a formal assessment technique. All right, so one thing I wanted to bring up before I get started was some background. And I really like this report by Dr. Claudia Jenkins and Stuart Lane on embedding employability skills in economics degrees. They reviewed some 3 interrelated research questions, but I was more focused on the first one. Are there gaps between what departments are doing and what employers are looking for? What they found similarities in terms of what employers and what educators are teaching in terms of the skill areas. They also found some gaps in between what employers are looking for. So for example, there's a high concern in terms of communication from the employer side, although that skill provided in academic, we see that employers feel that our students are not really well prepared in that area. And one of the reasons that came up was maybe we do not teach our students to communicate or write reports to those who are not in that expert area. So we want to engage individuals who are non-experts in the discipline. Another area that came out to be a high concern was collaboration. I think the employers are looking for students or recent graduates to be able to work with peers who are in different disciplines rather than just one discipline. And then I think the bigger one that came up was the data analysis, although a low concern, because we do a really good job as educators in economics to train our students in data analysis. I think what employers are looking for is something really simple than complicated or technical econometric skills. So they were looking for more in terms of data cleaning, data organization, and simple analysis. But at the end of the day, to bring in the communication part to tell an effective data story. And then I think there was a big gap in terms of what educators thought in terms of what the application for the real world looks like. Basically, we do a good job in trying to connect the real world to concepts taught in economics to what actual employers are actually looking for in terms of what work or what value this student or graduates could bring into their workforce. A similar study was recently done by the National Association of Colleges and Employers at the United States, and few of these skill areas also showed up. The way I look at this 8 skill areas is a way to build a a brand of a student who's about to graduate. And I was just talking to Parama a little bit earlier about the idea of digital branding or digital badges. And I like to think about my students having these different badges and saying, how can we improve that skill from a skill rubric from 0 to 100. And the more closer we get to 100, we feel comfortable that our students are going to be much more ready for the careers with the employers. I'm going to relate a few of the skill sets, especially the one, also as the one of the report I shared earlier, with what I'm going to talk about today. But then there's also this article from Washington Post that focuses on why so many college students fail to gain job skills after graduation. And I really like the comment at the bottom, which talks about how our best employees are problem solvers and able to weave everything they know together. So they want them to think on their feet. And so the idea of authentic assessment kind of plays a role up here in terms of how we can prepare the students or graduates to fit that market. Or really quickly, if there are any questions that come up, feel free to distract me or interrupt me. I'm more than happy to answer those questions. All right, so let's go to a formal definition of authentic assessment. There's plenty you could find online, but a couple that really reach out to me are the first one, which really focuses on performing a real world task that demonstrates meaningful application of essential knowledge and skills. Or also if you focus on the second one, the idea of ability to apply the skills and knowledge that students have mastered within their classes or the curriculum. So when I think about authentic assessment, I look for 4 different ideas that we as educators could do to promote our students to become better suited for career opportunities. One, we should think about our mission to develop productive citizens. Now, I always tell my students that I want to build you to be good citizens. Now, good can be subjective, but I'm passionate about economics, and I really try to enforce the ideas and applications that we use that could help us make better decisions and just do good in the real world. But we also should look into making them productive citizens. And what does it mean to be productive? The way I think about making students productive is, can they create value when they go into the real world, right? And that's the idea of being productive citizen. So how do we do this? So we basically help students we should come up with some form of assessment that will help them become proficient at performing this task in the real world after they graduate. And so to understand, to see if we are going to be successful at this, one, we can really see how our students are adapting to the real world after graduation. And second, are our students capable of doing the tasks that are required by these organizations? All right, so we realized, Abdul and I realized, there were quite a few problems. One, from the faculty perspective, we spent a lot of time working hard to develop really good course materials for our students, but where we struggle is we have a constraint with time. There's not enough time for us to provide all tools necessary for our students to be successful at the after graduation time period. One thing we can do is we can provide a resource for faculty to adopt really quickly to help their students feel career ready. Next, we realized that the students kept on asking us, what do economics, what if I major in economics, what kind of job can I do? That's a question that comes up often. And one thing we wanted to do was try and find a way to ensure that students are able to see what economics degrees, career paths that they can pursue. And then lastly, one thing we realized with the business community was that they always wanted to reach out to students within an institution. Even if they have really good partnership with institutions, they have a struggle with meeting students face-to-face at a larger level. So they may meet 1 or 2 students who have really high GPA, who've done a really good job with their resume, but they miss out on the masses that are quality students as well. And so that's one thing they lose out on. And the second thing they lose out on is that they're not sure what economics students are capable of. And when a lot of times they tend to hire, their job description tries to ensure that they're looking for someone who's in finance or marketing. But over time period, we've realized that they're actually looking for those students who are probably trained in economics. And so that's one thing that we wanted to try and reduce the gap and bridge the gap between what we teach in economics, students who learn economics, and what employers are looking for. So the solution. We decided to come up with the Econ games. We're really excited about this program. And the goal of the Econ games is basically to design courses and provide experiential learning events to our students at various levels. We've broken down this into multiple areas now from the beginning of what we started as. Our main two products are one, an Econ Games conference that is hosted yearly, and then we do a summer data camp. And I'll talk a little bit about each in a second. So we really found that using this tool as Econ Games provided that authentic assessment informally, because it's not part of a curriculum, to help develop the technical and soft skills of our students who wanted to go into or who wanted to be career ready right after the undergrad. So let me go through the different services that the Econ Games provides. One is the annual conference. This is what we really started with. The annual conference was our goal to partner with an industry. Now, this industry could be a government agency or could be a private entity. Our goal was for us to partner with them such that they could provide us with a data set that their employers use within their firm to our students who could sit back, relax, take 6 hours to 24 hours to analyze the data and return value back to our partnering firm. So the way it works is, and this was in the beginning, initially we partnered with 8451, which was a marketing research firm for a big grocery store in the United States called Kroger. So they basically collected all the data of every customer that walked into the grocery store, what they bought, and so on. So we partnered with them, and the first data partner Econ Games conference was held in person between Northern Kentucky and University of Kentucky, and students were introduced to the data at 8 in the morning. So we had a data drop at 8 in the morning, and students had 6 hours to analyze the data with a group that they've never worked with some technology constraint, because we had not really researched this. A lot of data that was dropped was in huge quantity. It's a large data set, and students' computers started crashing, and something that we had not foreseen. But yes, they had technology constraint. And then eventually, in that 6 hours, they had to come up with a presentation, analyze the data, and come up with something of a value, communicate something of a value to our data partners. I like to term it as interning for a day, because that's what a lot of our student interns have done, where they go to an organization, they're given a data set, and they're like, all right, find me something of a value in the 2 or 3 months you're here with us. So for 2 years, we got to analyze data from 8451. And then last year, because of COVID, we had to change things up. And it was really a blessing for us, because we now are able to recruit many universities from Northern America, and then also UCL from England. And we decided to move a different direction and recruit a policy question. So we partnered with the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland, who provided us with a huge data set at various levels for students to analyze. So out of those 18 universities, we had 286 students with 22 faculty advisors. And the way that worked was, it was a one-week conference where data dropped on a Friday. Each school provided the winning team by Sunday. Federal Reserve told us the top 3 teams by Wednesday. The top 3 teams basically presented on the following Friday on a live presentation. So that was a very successful conference for us, and we like to continue at some form of trying to do both, which I'll talk a little bit about as well. So something we also learned from our annual conference was that students who were participating didn't really have the data skills that would make them successful to be competitive in this conference. We try to sell the conference as a learning opportunity for our students, but when the students see money involved between first, second, and third prizes, they get really competitive. So we realized that, hey, if there's a gap between the data skills that they're learning in an annual conference, let's do a summer data camp where we'll provide the skills as well. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well in a second. But this last year, summer data camp, we provided data, R, Tableau, and storytelling with data for the idea of telling a good, effective economic story. And for that, we also had 167 participants and also weekly speaker series as well. And then we added the speaker series for 21-22. Now, the goal of this was to show students the various jobs economic students could pursue, just to open up their eyes in terms of what opportunities are out there. So we tend to do this monthly, and we invite different speakers from different organizations with different backgrounds to show the diverse opportunities available for students. And then lastly, that has just recently started is our student consulting services. So we're always looking for firms that rely on a small budget, but need some work to be done within their firms to come and hire Econ Games so that we can give our students some consulting experience as well. Let's see if there are any questions. What?
No worries. I'm keeping an eye on it.
All right, fantastic. All right, so last year, as I mentioned, we had 18 schools that participated. We had a wide variety of schools that did participate, and we're really excited to have a really successful event. Eventually, I'm glad to be here at UCL because UCL did place a top 3, and so it was a great experience for UCL, and especially being their first-time participants. So that was really great to see. In fact, our 2 international schools, Montreal from Canada, also placed as well, and then University of Kentucky also placed as well. So it was really exciting to bring all these groups of students from different areas, engage with each other, and connect and network with each other as well. All right, so one thing we wanted to know was what we are doing, is it really working? We wanted some form of feedback. So we decided to do a pre and post survey. I'm going to try and share both pre and post survey responses in some, I'll jump around between the pre and post. So one thing we did ask of our students was percentage of respondents that have no experience or consider themselves novice at any of these programming or software opportunities. So we did notice that Excel, majority of students in Excel were familiar with Excel, which makes sense. A lot of our programs do use Excel. And then Stata makes sense as all because, including me, I am stubborn that because I only use Stata, I tend to use Stata within my classes as well. And I think we are stubborn in a way that it's tough for us to move away from something that we really know. It was good to see that Python was catching up. Not really far away from Stata, but you could tell that there were a lot of different softwares that companies use that other students were not familiar with at all. We got really great feedback in terms of 91% of students gave us a 7 or greater when asked whether they would come back, they would recommend Econ Games to a friend. That's showing us that we're moving on the right path and seeing that students are craving for such opportunities. So that was really good to see. And then 81% also felt that they feel more prepared for the professional career after participating in the Econ Games. And that was one of our goals, right? To try and provide this authentic assessment, ability for students to take their skills and apply them in the real world and see if they're ready for the career of the professional career. And it's good to see that 80% thought that this helped them. And what we want to do is kind of increase that to above 90 to ensure that every student is benefiting from this as well. And then we asked them whether participating for Econ Games helped them understood the importance of data analysis in real world applications. And that was overwhelmingly yes, 98% of students thought that, and it was really great to see. And then also the importance of data analysis to their career aspirations. So we're seeing that we're trying to bridge that gap between the uncertainty students have and the labor market requirements. And then the idea of economic concepts, that was a little bit low at 77%, but that kind of makes sense because there are not many times we use those economic terms, concepts in presenting our findings. So there's some ideas that can be presented in your findings based on what the research question is, but not all economic concepts would be applicable to all the findings that they found. So yeah, we could see that be a little bit lower. All right. Then we did the summer data camp in 2021. This was a 4-week course. We had a weekly speaker series for every week based on what was being taught that week. So we did a week on Stata. We did a week on R. Then we did a week on Tableau. And then we did a week on data storytelling. So Stata was taught by Emily Marshall. She's at Dickinson College. R was taught by gosh, I'm blanking her name. This is Courtney. Thanks. R was taught by Courtney. She's an RA at Princeton University. And then I taught Tableau, and then we had Brandon Sheridan from Elon who did storytelling. Yes.
Sorry for interrupting you, but these might address themes. There is a question in the chat, and so I think perhaps these might address that question. It says, one fairly controversial aspect of experiential learning is the importance of repetition to build skills. Do these students really acquire skills at the conference, or is it just a simply one-off?
That's a great question. That's something that Abdullah and I have also discussed in terms of how many times a student going to learn a skill and then revisit that. So for example, we do this workshops, and I did this workshop on Tableau. How many times do I know that students are now going to go home, maybe that night, at the end of the week, or maybe at the end of the summer, and practice that? And only with practice, we know that they're going to get better. And so I think that it's not a skill that students can run and acquire in one-off skill. I think it's a long-term training that's needed, but that training can come in different steps. So one thing we did was we created all these intro classes in summer data camp, but our goal is next summer to create a more advanced level and then continue doing a more advanced level. So to continue educating and providing the learning tools for our students to be more successful going forward. But yeah, I think one thing with experiential learning is that every research question is also going to be very different from different industries. And so we are always learning. And also as educators, we're always learning as well. So definitely not a one-off skill. And you're right, especially soft skills. All right, so then we also did weekly speaker series connecting to each individual event or each individual event that took place that week as well. In this scenario, it was also really successful. And I'm really excited to share the data with you guys, because I forgot to include the slide that includes diversity data for the Econ games. But we really had great diversity for the Econ games conference and also for the data camp. And we had a large percentage of female students participating, which is very unique for us, because especially at University of Kentucky, our student population of economics, we are around 800 students, only 28% make up female economics. And I think that's a large issue with a majority of the programs across the nation or maybe the world as well. So it was really exciting to see a big diverse group of individual students participating, and a range from 15 years to 53 years. We had originally planned for only college students, because we were thinking Econ games, right? We're going to help students develop the skill sets to be successful in the following Econ games. But we were wildly surprised with this diverse group of students participating. So this was the breakdown of the diverse group of students. We had high school students who were 14, 15 participating, which is really nice to see. This was unexpected. We had a huge amount of graduate students who actually participated, which is good, because they're also thinking in terms of, hey, if they want to get into academia, what sort of skills do they want to develop as well? As expected, we wanted a lot of first, second, third year. And then we also realized that the majority of fourth year college students were really participating, because in some sense, panic was setting in terms of they weren't feeling prepared enough for the labor market and so on. And we want to change that, right? We want to change that to be the first year, kind of reduce that numbers as they move higher up in their education career. And then we had a few faculty members, we had around 4 or 5 faculty members who wanted to up their skills. They knew Stata, but they wanted to learn Tableau and R as well. All right, so then again, when we talked about what did they find helpful about this data training, it was really surprising to see that Tableau definitely took the lead on that. A lot of participants really liked the Tableau week. I think the reason is because it's easy to adopt. It's easy to pick up. It's not that difficult software. We have to write programming, do a lot of coding and so on. So that was really great to see. And I think 1 week was plenty of time for someone to pick up Tableau with all the exercises that we had provided as well. Not surprisingly, seeing R struggling, I think 1 week wasn't enough for R. I think we really stretched and pushed for it, and our participants let us know about that as well. The data story week was the second least helpful. Again, it probably depends on who our clientele was, or who took this data camp. And I think what students will eventually realize is when they actually go into the job market, that's where it's going to come pretty handy as well. And because we wanted to really teach them to tell an effective story. And then Stata came in around the third aspect as well. Question? Yeah.
I noticed you don't have, or maybe I missed it, but an Excel week. And I know a lot of students say that they are quite familiar with Excel, but what I find is that they know how to open Excel.
Yeah.
They know how to put some data in Excel. They don't really know how to use all the capabilities, all the things that are, of course, not, I don't know that either, but managing data sources, there are things that are easier to do in Excel than are in Stata, for instance. And of course, a lot of work places
Do require Excel.
So do you have considered having Excel?
And Claudia's report did mention that one of the requirement was Excel. And yes, great feedback. And that's something that Abdullah and I have to think about. We basically never thought about providing the Excel week because from our data, we did see that students are very familiar with it. But you're right, just like the question that was asked in terms of how likely are they going to maintain those skill levels. If they're not going to use it enough, then are they going to remember how to do that? And I think Excel should be eventually a part of that, especially seeing our diverse group of students that participated. It will be really helpful for also high school students who are coming in to develop those skills. And I think we will go back and think about how to implement that. Thanks.
And sorry, there's a question in
Yeah.
the chat if you want to take it now.
Sure.
How do you, you can read it.
Yeah.
Please.
How did you handle the variety of backgrounds coming into the classroom? Was the assumption that students had no knowledge coming in? Great question. So initially, we never knew who our audience was going to be. So we basically made sure it was completely an intro level data week. So we assumed that these individuals who are going to participate with this data week had zero experience coming into the data camp. And so that's what we did. And that's how we approached it. And so every data presenter was given that challenge and basically had to create videos because this was also held remotely. And we had students coming from a wide variety of countries. We had students coming from Oman, Dubai, and so on. So basically, we ensured that it was started at the basic level. And that's why our goal is then for the next summer and going forward, also develop higher level classes. So those who feel comfortable at the intermediate level or beginners level can go to the intermediate level and so on. Good question. All right, so we're talking a lot about benefits to our students. What are benefits to our partners? And the reason I like to put this out here is just in case you are aware of any partners data partners or industry partners who would like to be part of the Econ Games, feel free to connect with them. Feel free to share about the Econ Games story. One thing, as I mentioned about our partners, they do come to our campuses. They do connect with students, but they connect with very limited students. One of the goals of the Econ Games was to give a chance to every student. Some of our students are just not good test takers. They have the knowledge of economics, they have the knowledge of data, but they're just not good test takers. So maybe their GPA is not as high as 3.8, the US version, 3.8 to 4.0. What would be the English version, British version? First class and so on. And so we want to give our students who are maybe at the lower spectrum around 3.0, 2.8, who have the skills, give them a chance to show their abilities and see that they also bring value to our employers. So we want to connect to students at a larger level, and not just from University of Kentucky or Northern Kentucky University. We want to introduce them to the wide diverse group of students all over North America and international as well. And that's why I think we noticed that it also creates an outreach and community engagement opportunity for that. And as I mentioned, we're focusing this not just in Kentucky, but focusing on a wide variety of areas that lets them or helps them get their name out and engage the wider community. One benefit that they really get is basically these companies are known to just drop a bunch of data set to their employees and tell them, hey, bring back something of value. They pay them a lot of money. One thing we want to show them is, hey, we're going to bring you over 200 students with different diverse backgrounds, and they're going to analyze this data, and they're going to give you quite insightful feedback in terms of what value your data holds. That's a lot of benefit that they could gain from providing a data set, in this case, for students to analyze. And then lastly, we at Econ Games really, really value branding. And basically, we show our partners that we would increase their awareness through social media. And my colleague, Abdullah Al-Barani, he's really good at it. And he also has a YouTube channel. that just recently talked a little bit about how to brand oneself. So that's some of the benefits that our partners get from participating with the Econ Games. So how can industry partners help? The first thing is we're always looking for data partners. Without your data, students don't get the real world experience. So industries really can help us out with being data partners. If they cannot provide data because of it being very restricted data, what they can do is they can join our speaker series, show what kind of work they do, show our students that those are the career opportunities that they can pursue. Or they can provide us internship opportunities for our students. They can join us for the Econ Games as just sponsors, and then come and see the wide variety of students who are participating and provide these opportunities for our students. Or they could also provide a student-driven consulting, as the Econ Games has a student consulting branch towards as part of their program. And then, of course, we're always looking to place our students for jobs, and any career services or job postings can go through the Econ Games, and we will get it to the masses for the students who would be a good fit for these industries as well. All right, that brings us to the idea of 2022. What to expect in 2022? There are a lot of uncertainties for 2022, as we all have faced in 2021 and 2020. But with that said, we wanted to move ahead and decide what to do with the Econ Games. So first, we are definitely having an in-person Econ Games this year. This year it's going to be on March 24th, 25th at Lexington, Kentucky, at University of Kentucky. Our main data sponsors are Fisher Homes. They're part of the home housing industry. And again, students are going to get a data drop on March 24th at 4 p.m. None of us know what the data is going to look like, and none of us know what research question is going to be proposed by Fisher Homes. Students will have 24 hours, hence interning for a day now, to analyze the data and come present. So we have 8 universities participating, and we have over 100 students who are going to come in person to participate as well. So that's our in-person Econ Games. The next big exciting news to share with you guys is that we have partnered with UCL, and thank you, Parama, and World Data Lab to have our first annual, well, second annual, because last year was remote, first annual remote Econ Games that is going to be hosted in May. We're lucky enough to have both partners in this room. And so I'd like to have Parama and Juan come up and say a little bit about the partnership. And Juan, you can tell us a little bit about World Data Lab.
Great. Thanks very much, Darshak, and we're really, really excited. So let me just say that, so UCL Economics last year, 50 students ended up participating. We sent 10 teams. We had 10 teams, so we ended up having a big internal competition, and then our top team, like Darshak said, ended up placing third in the overall competition as well. So that was really exciting for them. This year, it's been very clear to us that our students have the interest, and because it's in May, they will have the time also to get involved in something like this. Last year, the interest took us by surprise a little bit. I don't think we anticipated that kind of demand, but this year, what we're hoping to do is use CTEL, sort of our contacts across the UK and across Europe as well, to provide both sort of additional learning opportunities during the games. So, workshops and things like that. At CTEL, we're working with the Social Data Institute, which is a new organization within UCL. That's the geographers and political scientists. They are all about data visualization. So they will be running some sessions to get students used to this idea of storytelling with data. So one of the things that we face in the UK is that because we have such specialized degree programs and such high entry requirements, our students are very, very technical. They can prove the unbiasedness of an estimator like nobody's business. However, the kind of things that Darshak was talking about, the kind of employability skills, are not always sort of predominant in their training. So what we're trying to do is to give our students an opportunity to do that. And because we've been there once already, we've had some learnings which we're happy to share with international other participants as well. So I'm going to leave it there and hand over to Juan.
Hello, everybody. By the way, my voice is a little bit rough. But yeah, let me kick it off. So World Data Lab, we're basically what we call a data enterprise. We specialize in developing granular economic and demographic forecasts at any point in time, basically. And we collaborate with experts, researchers, and decision makers in the private and public sector. So there's two sides to World Data Lab. There's an NGO side, which is a non-profit side, and then there's a for-profit side. On the Inc., what we call the for-profit side, we work with big conglomerate companies, let's say your L'Oreal, Colgate, big companies like that, HSBC, McKinsey, things like that, and we provide them with internal data for them to, let's say, do market research. We provide really granular spending estimates and pretty much virtually every country. Then on the NGO side, we partner with organizations like the United Nations, the FAO, and basically what we do is we build tools for them to develop insights that will affect policymaking. Right now, for example, we're working with the United Nations Office on Migration, and we're working on a project that is going to directly influence migration from Germany to Moldova, Moldova to Germany, and to Portugal. So that's basically just a pretty brief summary of the work we're doing, and we're very excited to be working here with the Econ Games. I'm very excited to be here at UCL, and yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right, so it's really exciting. We definitely realized that there was a demand well beyond North America, and so we're so happy to share this opportunity for our school partners and our data partners outside the United States as well. There's already increased interest in asking whether we were having a remote Econ Games, and this was an opportunity for us to share that idea that yes, we are having a remote Econ Games, and there's lots of positive spillovers to benefit from students, colleagues, and future employers as well. So what would this Econ Games look like? We want to just share some information on that. So the dates are going to be May 20th to May 27th. We're really excited to see what the World Data Lab comes up with, because they have a huge amount of data sets. So we're really excited to see what kind of research question they'll come up with. But Parama, UCL, and CTEL will be in touch in terms of when can schools register, when can students start registering. And something I'd forgotten to mention, right before the games start, we do provide some data challenges for students to get their hands dirty with data, whether it's to do with cleaning data, whether it's to do analysis, or whether it's to download publicly available data, to help them start thinking in terms of what the data sets would look like, or working with data to get them prepared in terms of what to expect with the challenge as well. So the goal is the data will be released on May 20th. Each school may submit their best submission by Sunday or Monday, final presentations by May 27th, but registration details to come soon. And then we also have a summer data camp this year. Now, because of the feedback we received and a little bit of late feedback, which we'll take into consideration for summer 2023, we are going to have 3 weeks of R in the month of June, and that's going to be live synchronous classes. So it's not going to be asynchronous. And then in July, we're going to have 3 weeks of Tableau, Stata, and storytelling. So we listened, and we're going to provide. And I'm going to listen about Excel, and we're going to provide for that next year as well. Maybe we can pull it off this year, but we'll see. So we're excited about this summer data camp, and information about that should come as soon as we conclude the in-person Econ Games on March 24th, 25th as well. All right, so when I started this talk, I talked a little bit about authentic assessment. And the idea of authentic assessment was to provide this real world skills, opportunities for students where they could go apply this. When I think about econ games, it does provide that opportunity for students to first work through technological constraints, work through group constraints. They're working with group members that they've never worked with. And it's shown that businesses are looking for individuals who could work and collaborate with individuals from different disciplines. They're faced with time constraint because we are trying to push everything within a day or so. And then they have the data constraint. They're going to work with data they've never seen. And then lastly, they have to communicate that data to our data partners. So it kind of hits those 5 main points that I was talking about earlier on, that what employers are looking for. And hence, we're really excited with the path that Econ Games is taking. We're really excited about the partnerships that we're building. We're really excited most of all for the students. So I know I might have finished a little bit early, but thank you so much for having me here. And I'm open to taking any questions that come by.
That's here as well. She's going to start teaching, I think.
Awesome. Oh yeah, you guys can follow us on Twitter as well. My colleague Abdullah is at Dr. Albarani, and mine's at Patelnomics as well. So if you want to connect with us, feel free to connect on Twitter, or you can also email us at our respective emails as well.
Can you maybe say a little bit about how you ran the online portal, the social challenges that you did and so on last year?
Oh yeah, sure. So Paramount asked about how we ended up connecting all students from different institutions and how we distributed the challenges that students received prior to the actual event. So we use the publicly available Canvas learning management system. So this is not affiliated to any schools at all. So anybody can go, any educator can go create this Canvas page and then create folders within this Canvas page, or just treat it as a regular learning management system and interact with students or participants like we would regularly do in a regular learning management system within our school system. So I already used Canvas at University of Kentucky, Abdullah as well. So we found Canvas to be a much easier path for us to choose in terms of time constraints that we had. So what we did was, we came up with different challenges. One thing was we wanted to create that opportunity for students to network. It's not the same as networking in person, where we could have students over for pizza, or we could just have employees set up tables and students to communicate with each other. So what we did was we created a way for students to network through the discussion board, where they would introduce themselves, create a small video talking about why they're participating in Econ Games, and asking our students to engage with at least 2 members from the participating or the discussion post that was posted by the student. Second, we asked all students to also put up their LinkedIn link as well. The goal was to ensure that students are building a professional brand. And so with a LinkedIn, if students do not have a LinkedIn, one, it pushed them to get a LinkedIn. Second, if they did have a LinkedIn, it made them focus more on how to brand it in a way that employers can notice them. So that was the first challenge. The second challenge was to then build up their data skills. So the second challenge was for us to come up with a very simple exercise for data cleaning. Me being a soccer fan or a football fan, sorry, I keep forgetting where I am. I ended up getting some FIFA data and gave students challenges in terms of what needs to be cleaned. And then we asked them to post the results or social media or LinkedIn and share with each other. And it was really surprising to see that how, whether some students use Excel or some students use data, they all came with different ways of solving the or cleaning the data. And it was really nice for them to engage online saying that, hey, I never thought about it this way. Thanks for sharing me. So again, building this network online was really nice to see. Then we provided a data set on financial literacy, where Abdullah asked them a different task to complete. And eventually they had to do an analysis based on the data on factors that would affect financial literacy. So it's simple regression analysis with not really complicated large data set. And then lastly, we did a Tableau workshop where we had a video from one of our colleagues showing how to use Tableau from scratch. And then we had a couple of small data tasks for students to come up with data visualization. Again, students were welcome to post this on the discussion board or on the social media. And again, tagging the university or tagging the Econ Games brand, again, just making sure they're exposed out there to the general public as well. So this year we've added 2 new challenges. We've added we've added a challenge where students will have to download publicly available data and see how they can maneuver through the process of doing so and running a few analysis using CPS data and BLS data and IPUMS data as well. So we're just adding some more technical skills as well for students who already feel comfortable with the beginner skill sets that we were sharing in the beginning as well. Did I cover everything? All right. Some questions.
Yeah, I was going to say that Abdullah commented on their new program. I was going to say that Cloda Imperial is also starting a data science and economics program. So very timely in terms of all of these things.
Yeah, I see
In
that.
fact, Viola is asking a question. Oh, sorry.
Given the skills are so important for students, how scales something like this up or embedded in degrees? So great question. Abdullah kind of mentioned we have introduced the data analytics for economics and business elective. One thing Abdullah is doing, and he kind of worked on this on his sabbatical, was create a course on building up to the Econ Games. So doing all the challenges. So basically think about a course called the Econ Games. And there's a colleague who also participated last year in the Econ Games. She wanted to do the same thing. And so she basically started from scratch as well, trying to build up an Econ Games curriculum. There are other ways to do this, but one thing we want to do is definitely help other colleges and schools to develop the Econ Games curriculum, but also reach out to your own classes and see. So we have, whenever you look at all the different classes, we always see the course descriptions. But one thing I think we fail as academics to do is highlight what exact skills that we are taking away from the class that is going to make us competitive or beneficial to our employers that are looking for us. So a huge opportunity to scale up. There are lots of ways you can do that. They could have a business analytics minor. We can also call it the Econ Games minor. I'm happy with that as well. But yes, this is really important. And as said, in terms of how authentic assessments are taking over as well, embedding such programs in the degrees would be really valuable for students as well. Let's see more questions. Earlier on, the discussion was about productive decision, but the idea of brand building feels very instrumental. Agreed. And as we said, the Econ Games is very, very passionate about brand building. And I think it's important to share that same message to our students. And like I mentioned about Abdullah's, Abdullah, go ahead and put up your YouTube link. I didn't realize he was there as well. So Abdullah mentioned.
We'll do that.
Thanks. So Abdullah had mentioned, so one thing I mentioned about brand building, and Abdullah had done very recently about how to build one's brand. It's a very short video. I really highly encourage everybody to have a look at it, especially students. And I think when students start focusing on themselves as brands and seeing how they can improve their brands, we would really see a big motivation among themselves and trying to go and say, hey, I want to take that art data camp. I want to take this class where I want to learn a forecasting tool and so on. So yes, I really am a big fan of the idea of building brands.
Can I just make one point? I think you've been very modest about, but I think this is one of the sort of essences of something like this. So Steffi and I will work on sort of diversity initiatives. So Steffi's the Royal Economic Society's diversity champion. I think a lot of what you're saying here, so both in building the skills, but also the brand, is part of kind of what's often called the hidden curriculum.
Yes.
As in, some people know how to do it because of whatever, social capital, whatever it is. Making it explicit, there is a huge value to it to the people who would otherwise not know. Like you said, taking it to the masses, there are lots of people who have the abilities, who have not the right connections and knowledge or information to really do it. So that's a sort of facet of the Econ Games that I think would be good to highlight.
No, yeah, you're right. So Parma does mention the idea of that a lot of our student participants may or may not have this actual tools to do well in econ games or even be ready for the labor market. Now, again, it has to do with their background or where they're coming from. And she highlights that with the idea of the hidden curriculum. So yeah, one thing about econ games is really, which also surprised us and in a good way, was in finding out where our students are coming from, what skill sets they have, and how to highlight those skills to show that what they're capable of. So a couple of things to mention. One thing I'm really excited about was the group of diversity the Econ games have brought in terms of gender, age, different classifications. Second, for students to realize that they have the tools, but not the confidence to actually apply the tools. And the Econ Games is giving them a chance to show that path, that they are good at what they do. It's just that they just need an opportunity to provide that. And I think I'd mentioned a little bit about how we always focus, companies a lot of times focus on picking students based on GPAs and, some who have had a chance for an internship. But yes, those students who have a high GPA are more likely to get those internships. And that means those who are at a lower end, maybe a 3.0 or average Ps, are losing that opportunity to get an internship and hence making themselves, their brand better to get the eventual job. So Econ Games helps fix that gap or bridges that gap to providing these opportunities for these students to then hence apply their tools and the skill sets so that they also get that same opportunity to be competitive in the labor market as well. And like Abdullah mentioned just now, 50% of my participants, his participant students, identify as female, and no other econ program was run, had representation. 30% identify as an underrepresented minority as well. So we're really excited about that, and we really hope that this really creates a wider interest between from our majors and brings in more diversity brings in more diversity for more women and more minorities to major in economics. And I think that would be a big success for this program.
I think Claudia has raised her hand.
Claudia does?
Thanks, Steffi. I was just wondering, so going back to Tim's question a little bit, there's a lot about sort of, you can get an internship and a good job out of doing things like this, but how much do you think it's valuable that people learn these kind of skills so that when they're interpreting the news or interpreting data in the public domain just as citizens, that they might be making better voting decisions or better decisions about their life?
So that's why when I introduced this in the beginning, when I mentioned the idea that the goal was for us to, our mission should be to create productive citizens, but I also wanted to add the idea that when I talk to my students, I want to build good citizens. We can take a data set and manipulate the data set to look like we want it to look like, and the idea is of what kind of story we want to tell. But that's why I like to add the idea of good citizens and productive citizens, so productive good citizens, which would give them that, I guess, the moral, a good moral satisfaction in terms of being good, doing good, and providing good analysis and telling a good data story. So yeah, I think it's productive is a key item, but I think good is also a key item and subjective in many instances. But when I mean good, I mean like the ability to make a positive influence and be able to tell a positive story, tell the right story. So for example, when I talk to my students about wearing a mask and I tell them, where do we draw the line? We're talking about the invisible handshake and the social and moral beliefs. And I tell them, where do we draw the line? And then I have my mask on and I say, is it here? I pull it down. Is it by the nose? I pull it down. Is it by my lips? Or do I pull it down my chin? And I think that's the subjective part.
Right. Thanks very much, Darshak. So we're at the hour mark.
All right. Thank you, guys.
So thanks to Darshak, thanks to Abdullah, who's back there as well. If I can just end with a quick request for any of you, especially in the UK or in Europe, who are interested in taking part, please do reach out to me or to Darshak or Abdullah, of course, or to the CTEL email. So when you signed up, you would have signed up, you got an email through the CTEL email. We will be in touch really soon. The call for the recruitment call will go out to the CTEL email list as well. But if you know others who might be interested, please do get in touch and sort of connect them to us. We're really looking forward to this. We're really hoping that we'll get a very different sort of broad, diverse set of universities and students taking part. And I think, Darshak, if we're doing the international crowd, then it's definitely going to have to be the football data.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the baseball data is good because it has a lot of detail and everyone's watched Moneyball, right?
Yes.
But football data, I think, will have a different kind of resonance to it. Maybe the Russia shop, what happens if Chelsea goes down? Sorry, I'm an Arsenal fan. That was a cheap shot.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you, everyone. Take care. And the recording of this will, of course, be on YouTube on our channel as usual. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you later.
Well, thanks. Glad you could make it.